You are listening to 105.9 FM The Radiator, WOMMLP Burlington, and now begins Rocket Shop Radio Hour. I'm your host, Abby BK, and tonight we have Joe Adler. Joe, how are you doing?
Good. Nice to be here, Abby.
Of course, and we usually like to kick it off with a song, so what have you got for us?
Yeah, got a song called The Core of the Mind. The spin of the earth is hidden deep inside the depths of the brain, in the core of the mind. Perceptions can serve us to understand things. The fresh stream of beauty that plays in the brain. The shadows, reflections, and the soul deep inside convey our emotions that sometimes we hide. And as I awaken the depths of my mind, the ink is still wet on the contract assigned. Mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm. We think that we're living as one solid thing, till systems that dictate bring light to that dream. We're greater, we think, than the sum of our parts, till systems that drive us break down, fall apart. The shadows, reflections, and soul deep inside convey our emotions that sometimes we hide. And as I awaken the depths of my mind, the ink is still wet on the contract assigned. Do-do-do, do-do-do, do-do-do. What makes one a person? Where it comes from the id, built from experience, foundation is hid from the director of life as you please, to lay out the map of the roots of the tree. The shadows, reflections, and the soul deep inside convey our emotions that sometimes we hide. And as I awaken the depths of my mind, the ink is still wet on the contract assigned. I start to imagine, I start to unwind the highways that stretch from the core of the mind. Do-do-do, do-do-do, do-do-do. Shadows, reflections, the soul deep inside. I start to imagine, I start to unwind. The ink is still wet on the contract assigned.
The Core of the Mind by Joe Adler. Thanks for starting us off with that.
Absolutely.
Can you kind of talk to us a little bit about the meaning behind the core of the mind?
I don't think there's really much meaning. I mean, it's from a batch of songs I wrote last year, kind of when we were thinking that we were coming out of everything with the pandemic. You know, just every day I got up the month of February and then a little bit into March and a little bit into April. Got up 7:30 in the morning, made some breakfast, sat down with my guitar and just wrote until a full song came out, and got about 40 of them. Used a few of them with a project I've got called Songs and String Instruments, and the rest of them are just kind of kicking around like little orphans that are, kind of finding their way in the world.
Gotcha. It's been great to hear that a lot of artists have taken the time during COVID that was obviously unfortunate, but making it into something good for their music. I'd actually read an article in 7 Days that covered that about you,
Nice.
that said that, these songs are kind of more personal and inward looking. Would this be kind of one of those as well that you would characterize as?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like figuratively and very literally, like really
The
the
core of the
core of the
mind.
mind, lots of, changes, happening in my life, with the pandemic and without the pandemic. I recently got married, had a lot of life changes, and yeah, just writing for me just feels like you know, like a musical diary. I don't sit down with any kind of intention of I'm going to write a song about this. Things creep in and like dreams creep in. There's like one song that I've got where it's literally about like a series of lucid dreams that I've had throughout my whole life, where I go to these rundown buildings in New York City and travel inside. And sometimes there's things going on, and then sometimes it flashes back to just like bare steel beams, and, so yeah, just channeling a little bit of that stuff, and just letting what come out.
Yeah. Well, firstly, congratulations on your marriage.
Thanks.
But are the songs that you were working on during that time, during COVID, the ones that you're still sort of in the process of producing and performing, or are you on to a new project?
I'll be real honest with you. I haven't really felt super inspired to sit down and write lately. I've actually went in with intentions like, okay, this week I'm gonna just sit down every morning and do some writing, and it's like finding that clear space in your head, like when everything that's in there is ready to come out, and so I did that big batch of writing, and then just have worked with those. I've got one album that I'm working on with my project Songs and String Instruments, that has like a little EP that has about 5 of these songs, that my buddy Eric Siegelstad is producing, over at Savvy Sound. Um, and yeah, and I'd like to bring a lot of these to my other bands and just kind of see what happens. I think over the course of the last couple of years, it's become very apparent that life is pretty short and you have to kind of seize the day. So, I don't have any plans on what to do with any of this material except, know that for me it brings me a lot of like peace and joy to have those reflections and to look back at last year and say, okay, like, yeah, like I was kind of diving into like, the what is inside of the core of the mind, and it's a nice journey to come back. I think this is the first time I've played that song like actually in front of people. It's cool to be here in front of all of you guys. I haven't played in front of an audience since last August down at Somerville, so it's very nice to be here. It's very cool. Thank you guys for having me down here.
Of
you know
course. We're happy to have you. Do you sort of have a process of vetting? Do you have specific songs that you'll write that you kind of know you want that fuller band sound with? And do you have some that you'd rather perform solo, or do you kind of just wing it?
um Great question. I think the songs kind of decide for themselves. I have songs that I feel really like good about, like playing solo and without having any accompaniment, and some that feel really good having just a bass player. But then sometimes sit down with the full band and just start strumming something and working on, and they join in, and then it becomes like a bigger thing. So I think I always find, when I'm collaborating with people, that it's to let, my ego go and to let go of what I think might be the ultimate best thing, and to let other people's ideas come through. The thing I love most is hearing something that I've written that's very personal to me, be expressed through another instrument or through another voice. I love playing guitar and singing, by myself, but there's nothing like collaborating with other musicians, and that's what I'm looking forward to the most. I think this summer, is just playing with other people, and just writing with other people, and the whole thing. So
Yeah. Now that the scene is more open again because COVID is obviously getting hopefully better,
hmm hmm
are there any collaborations in particular that you're sort of looking forward to?
um, for myself right now, I'm just kind of letting things play out. I think what I'm looking forward to the most really is like those old collaborations. I sing with a woman named Marcy Hernandez. I sing with a woman named Samara Lark. Um, and we have these really cool little intimate acoustic duos that we do. Those are real fun. You know, the one with Marcy um, is bilingual, so she sings in Spanish sometimes. Sometimes it's like a conversation back and forth through the song. And then with Samara, she's like one of my best friends. So it becomes more of like a Las Vegas type of like lounge show with lots of dad jokes and unintentional comedy that happens throughout. But you know, the thing that I'm most serious about right now is that project I mentioned, Songs and String Instruments. And that's with my buddy Eric Siegelstad, who's producing the album. He's also the other half of the project. And then we have like a full band version of it, where his wife Aya sings, and we have a stand-up bass player, drummer, a lap steel guitar player. That gives it sometimes like a West African sound or like a Hawaiian kind of sound, like an island kind of sound. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to whatever comes. Like I am so grateful, to be living here in Vermont and around such caring, lovely people who I miss very much. And every day that I kind of creep back out of the house, and kind of get back out there into the world. It's nice to reconnect with people. So what I'm looking forward to the most, circling back to your original question, is just people being out there, collaborating in conversations, just you know, shooting the crap, just kind of like working through things. I think we've got a few years of self nurture and mutual therapy that we all deserve, and we'll share with each other.
Yeah, for sure. How has the whole process of recording and producing been? Do you typically have like a certain process for that? Do you record some tracks and bring them to the studio or work mostly in studio?
Um, for me, with my album Many Things and Many Scenes, which came out a few years back, uh, that one was like songs that were accumulated over like 10 years. Um, that was like the first like real album that I did. I did some home recordings and released a couple albums before that, but that was like the one that was, it's produced by Brett Hughes. Um, it took 2 years to make, probably like 18, 19 musicians on it. And it was a group of songs, like I said, that had been written since I first had moved up here to Vermont, like back in the, mid aughts, to stuff that was, more recent with, when I was recording, but nothing was like worked on in the studio besides like arrangements, Um, so we went in, recorded as like a 4-piece with organ, electric bass, and drums, and myself recorded all the basic tracks, and then for the next 6 months brought different people out to the barn and crack a beer, down a coffee, and record some horn lines, record some guitar solos, some co-vocals. Friends who lived around the area would come out and do that. In the age of COVID, it's me and Eric over at Savvy Sounds, and it's just the two of us. And um, you know, we're testing before we get together, and just being like really careful. That we're not endangering each other's lives to record music. Um, it's weird. It, it's a different process, but the love is still there. And I'd be really grateful, and hopefully very soon, I can bring the whole band back into the studio when we can get down and make some magic and do the whole thing. But right now, just very grateful to be able to get in there and do anything. So we've been building this album, the Songs and String Instruments album, for probably about the last like 4 or 5 months, and hopefully we wanted to get it out by last fall, which COVID definitely put the axe to that. But yeah, now we're hoping for maybe like late spring or something. But
Gotcha.
Yeah, but no rushing, you know. It's
Yeah,
like
no rushing.
it's like what happens happens, you know. None of us make money off recorded music anymore, you know. So it's like if you're going to make any kind of living with it, it's playing live. So, you know, let's get back to that and let's make some magic and, you know, do the whole thing, you know.
Of course. Well, we would love to hear another song live.
Cool. Yeah.
So, what else have you got for us tonight?
Well, this next one, let's see here. Capoed. And actually, this is the first time I'm playing this new guitar out. My former guitar, which is still in my life, Valentine. She's the guitar that I have written every song, I think, ever that I've ever written on, and it's just a real sweet, you know, kind of like a best friend, you know. She's an instrument that knows all my secrets.
Are you feeling a bit of a betrayal?
She might be feeling a little bit of betrayal. I mean, she sits there, you know, as I play this new one, who might have a name. I'm so on the. It's, you know, it's like when you
In the
name
works.
something. I mean, I've got a name, but it's like I don't want to say it out loud because I feel like once that happens, that's her name. So, but this next song is a song I wrote during that same period last year. And it's a song that when I was writing it, the morning that I was writing it, it very much felt like I was writing about something very super specific. And as I worked on it in the next few days, I realized that it was about something completely different, and had kind of worked. It was like the subconscious working through something. So for me, this one is like one of my favorites to play. And it is called Thunder and Rain. With jaws ajar, straight down to the floor, amazement in their eyes. With questions open, felt like a great big ocean. It came as no surprise. The weather report had called for a big storm. It arrived as it was cast. The peanut gallery felt unsatisfactory as the storm it reached the shore. The thunder and rain, it burst forth through the pane, presenting a path of sorrow. And down from the hills traveled many chills as the words of the fool were over. We can't complain, even through the rain, the forecast was pretty clear. The pestilence sat upon his chest, worn like a badge of honor. He could not avoid passing through the void. Arrogance had taken over. Back in the day, he had a lot to say, and that was only part of the problem. To the rest, he left the burden from his chest. He passed it across the table. Now here we stand in the shadow of that man, betrayed 1,000 times over. The thunder and rain, it burst forth through the pane, presenting a path of sorrow. And down from the hills traveled many chills as the words of the fool were over. We can't complain, even through the rain, the forecast was pretty clear.
All right. Well, how about you tell us a little bit more about just your musical background? So, when did you start singing? When did you start playing? How did it all come to fruition?
Started singing, I don't know, like in middle school, I'd say, like when I kind of got a little serious about it, singing choir and in middle school, singing choir and um, high school, ended up in the honors choir, and I'm from Washington D.C., so all the local honors choirs got to go and perform at the Kennedy Center, which is like one of the most illustrious stages in the world. So that was my first like big concert, and really the thing that like sticks in my mind, like backstage at the Kennedy Center, walking out onto the stage, even though it was with like a group of like 40 other kids, like felt like just like such a honor, and it's like every time you strum a chord and someone's in the audience or you sing, you've got a responsibility to share that story. If someone's gonna give you their ear, the songwriting is like one of the oldest forms of storytelling, and that's where we get a lot of our information passed down. Woody Guthrie's of the world and Bob Dylan's and Ani DeFranco's and Cab Calloway's and people like that, Duke Ellington. It's kind of painting those pictures with words and with music. So I try to honor that lineage and hope that I'm living up to any obligations that I have by picking up an instrument. But yeah, my dad was a Dixieland clarinet player who led a bunch of his own little jazz combos. So I grew up around it and grew up like with bands in the living room, rehearsing, going to gigs, and the whole thing. And it was a lot of fun. When I got to be a teenager, would run sound for the bands and do that whole thing. And picked up a guitar, got a guitar like 13th or 14th birthday from an aunt, like a little beater guitar from Sears that has since fallen apart completely throughout the years. I just cleaned out my parents' house not that long ago and found it, and strings are like, falling off the bridges, like pulled up, and um, but it meant a lot to me at the time, and so got my first electric guitar, and learned to play, some Bon Jovi, and all the hits of the mid '80s and early '90s, Nirvana and Mudhoney and stuff like that, and had a band called the Show Offs, which is where I wrote like some of my first songs that I would never share with anybody ever again. I probably should burn the papers that they're written on. But yeah, and then growing up in the DC area, like DC's like hometown music is go-go music. Um, which is like very percussive, like upbeat music with like organ hits and like conga players, and it's like real live and like sweaty nightclubs. And so I played guitar in like a go-go band, and that was like a real like energizer, kind of like wow, yeah, like I want to be playing chucking guitar and like making people dance. I don't do it as much with the singer songwritery stuff, um, but yeah, so I've been in bands up here that I've led and bands I've been a part of. I always find it's more fun to be a part of something than trying to lead something. Um, it's impossible to make everybody happy. So like I had a band called the We Folkestra. That was a nice big collective of folks, like 10 people in the band, and we all played our favorite cover songs, so playing like, Bruce Springsteen and, God, like stuff, old stuff and Tom Waits, and then like very new stuff. The age range in the band was pretty great, so it was cool. Like I think there's probably like a range of like 20 years between everybody that was in the group. So yeah, a lot of influences. Um, you know, music and just is like discovery for me. Like I don't ever feel like I'm ever at the place where I want to be with my playing, I always, want to be at that next place. I always try to play with people who are better than me, so I have to like up my game. I cannot like rest, you know. So, um, yeah, so, music is something, that I was born into, I was going to gigs while I was still in the womb, so I don't have like a lot of musicians say, and artists say, I really feel like I don't have a choice. I have a life outside of the music, but it's a very personal relationship. It's the kind of relationship that you have with your music when you write music. I think is like a, the kind of relationship you have like with um, an intimate partner, a parent, like it's more than a cousin, it's and it's more than like a one night stand, like your relationship with your instrument and your craft, is I like to think of it as like a whole other relationship I have. I have all these, people in my life, and things that I love and hobbies and everything, but the music, and writing music is like one of maybe like the three or four more like most personal for me.
Yeah. Have you found that while your style and your skill has obviously changed throughout the years, has your process of writing sort of stayed the same? I know you're kind of talking about how you draw inspiration from dreams or even like your subconscious. Has that always been true for you, or is that kind of newer?
Um, I don't know. It's hard to like look at your own art, you know, and to judge it at all. It is what it is. It like came out flapping down on the table. It's the the, uh, the new thing. So I always like the newer stuff, the most. That's the it's the new child, the one that gets the most attention, and um, but I'll go back to like a song that you know that I wrote like 15 years ago and that I haven't played in like 4 or 5 years, and pick it up again, and it's like picking up the phone and talking to an old friend, and every time that I play a song, I'm like going back to that moment, like what it was about, for me, So I feel like when you write a song, you kind of, let it out, and like it's for, the listener, it's whatever it means to them, like, it's like these aren't like songs that like, this means this, it's like, it's what it means for you, but the process is and it's different every time. Going back last year when I did like the 40 songs or whatever, or 37, I think actually. Um, I started off writing lyrics and writing with meter and being very like specific with different rhyme strategies, and A B A B A A B B A A B C, and got some cool stuff. And then I started experimenting around more with, um, writing the music side of it, and then coming back with some lyrics. And then really the thing that made the most sense, like for right now in my life, where before it had really always been writing the lyrics and probably taking myself way too seriously, and writing these big stanzas and poems and epic poems and putting in the music. And I think the ones that when I just pick up the guitar and start playing what falls out, and just listen to what is going on inside the head, and just let come out and process. I feel like songs are less of trying, for me, they're less of trying to like write and produce something, and more of like trying to work through a problem and work through a situation, or work through a conflict, whether it's good or bad, and I feel like the song's not really over until it gets to the other side, like I don't feel like, for me, like I want to like sit down and start to try to write if I've got a limited amount of time. Last year, lockdown, um, I was working, but I was working from home, and I just turned off the phone. Um, didn't open the computer except, to type. And there's a lot that I worked through. There's a lot that went through 2020. Like there was a lot to process. There's a lot of heartache, that we all like experienced together. That I just needed to sit down and like find what it meant to me. Like where am I? Like what's going on? I know where I am in the world, and I know where my career is, and I know where I live, and the whole thing. But like, where am I mentally? And I think really spending all those days, like I picked February in my head because it's the shortest month of the year, 28 days, so like it's an attainable goal. But then when it stopped, I felt like, wow, how the hell did I get up and do this every morning and like record it and like document it and send it to a couple trusted like best friends who, like I trust their judgment very much, and they're musical collaborators as well. But just really the process, I think, was something I really needed, and I think in hindsight, and thinking about it now, I think all personal writing, that we're doing, is all about working through things. It's not about documenting something. It's about like finding your way through something. Anyone can like look at that picture on the wall and cool, some ink and blah blah paper, but like what does it mean? Like what to me, and what does it mean to you, and like how am I processing through like all of this? And I think processing what we were all going through was just something that in the deep winter months felt good.
Yeah, an authentic and fluid process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There
For
were
sure.
no filters.
Yeah. Well, we would love to hear your next song.
Perfect. This one, it's another one of those, wondering songs, kind of songs that are just asking lots of questions. But this one's called Rolling Through. This one was real late in the process. This one came through like around the end of March. Sometimes I wonder what it is that creates life. A great big can of worms, no opinion now seems right. Shining neon signs try to pull me to the side. Whisper a secret code for admission to the tribe. Making sense of the corners of a dream. Working inward till we reach the inner scene. What connects us? Reflections of some light from another universe peeking through, glowing bright. What is our purpose here? Who wrote the master plan? Who really rules the earth? Who just lends a helping hand? As the mountains grow from the shifting of the plates, we are these little birds singing songs to celebrate. Making sense of the corners of a dream. Working inward till we reach the inner sea. What wonder if I'm rolling through a pinball game. Buzzers buzzing, another quarter, another game. Flippers flipping up the ramp to test the brain. A few more targets, then you drift down through the drain.
Rolling Through, Joe Adler. So you described how you kind of have a background in a few different genres. Are you thinking this new EP is going to be more of the singer-songwriter style when you record it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're done with most of the basic tracking. Now it's just like adding all the bells and whistles and all
Gotcha.
the stuff. Yeah, it's definitely a singer songwriter album. Um, Song like the idea with the project, songs and string instruments, is um, it's the songs from me and it's the string instruments from my buddy Eric, Eric Siegelstad. So he's traveled all over the world. He's originally from Norway, and he collects really cool instruments. So he's, when I first met him actually walking distance from here during Art Hop back in like 2010, 2011, I think, or 2010, I think it was. Um, he was playing with his group right outside of Speaking Volumes down here. Like, it's like, those like friends that you meet and like before you even like say a damn word to them, like, that like this is somebody that's like gonna be in your life. I felt that with him for some odd reason, and my band played afterwards, and we chatted, and I invited him over to play some music, and we ended up forming a project like a month later to cover Bruce Springsteen's Nebraska album, which was like just like next level for me. Like really, I'd never like learned a full album before, and like the process of learning the album, I felt like was the most important and fun and like thorough thing for me. Just like learning like those intricacies, and then learning about the album. That he was living in a cabin, by himself, recorded everything on a 4-track, and a lot of these are like first takes, and then like Bruce Springsteen like recorded the whole album with his band. They spent $1 million on it, and then like 3 weeks before it was supposed to come out, he called his manager, or his manager called him and said, "Look, the album you recorded with the band is great, but your demos that you recorded in the cabin that's you. That's the essence of the whole thing." So, you know, learning like all of these things and going through that journey with Eric was great. He played mandolin on that, and he's a fabulous guitar player. He plays an instrument called a shamisen. So, like on the songs and string instruments EP, it will be like the songs complemented by all these like sounds from around the globe. Like the shamisen came back from Japan with his wife. She brought that back. And then he's got all these like just like little cool things. So like it's like the project is just really like two friends who really love and respect each other. Like kind of complimenting each other. When I wrote some of these songs, when I got done with them, I'd call up Eric, and I'd be like, man, or text him and like this one is like us, man. Like this is like a song we should be playing. So most of the songs that are on the EP, like I kind of knew like right afterwards. And then one of them, he's like, why don't you play that like in a funky way? And then we did this whole like song that was more of like a singer-songwritery, folky kind of song, and then turned it into like this little like funky wah-wah kind of thing.
Yeah. Do you have an expected date for the EP? Ballpark it?
Nah,
No?
spring,
Spring?
summer, when it's done.
Nice.
It's coming out independently. The press team that's working on it's sitting in this chair right now. Um, you know, it'll come out. It'll be, a moment in time, a document in time, and maybe people will listen to it. That'd be awesome. And for me, just getting through the process is what's the most important part.
Right. Well, we always give everybody a chance to shout out where we can find your music. So I'll give you the time to give us your spiel. Where can we find you?
Um, Really, I think if you just go to joeadler.com, I think it takes you to my Facebook page, which is where you can find me. I mean, you can find my stuff on Bandcamp, but the easiest way to do it is just go to whatever your favorite streaming platform is and look up Joe Adler. Um, the album Many Things and Many Scenes is probably the one I'm most proud of. But yeah, that's where you can find it. Um, this summer, you'll find me out and around and playing music as myself and as Joe Adler and as Hair Down with Samara Lark and as AM Rejoice with Marcia Hernandez. And maybe we'll get the We Focustra back out. Maybe the Rangers of Danger will make an appearance. We'll see. But yeah, joeadler.com is the place.
Perfect. Well, we would love to hear your last song for tonight.
Cool. Um, awesome. Well, this one is a. Yeah, this one is whatever it means to you. It's called One Step Closer. As you lay it out, what it's all about. It's time to face it now. You're one step closer to it. Sit on the top of mind. Count down your borrowed time. Deep in the night, you find you're one step closer to it. Into the depths you see entire galaxies. Climb up that weeping tree. You're one step closer to it. You're one step closer to it. To crack the secret code. Overthinking will corrode the clues you've yet to see. And then the moment you're set free, not hit deep in a book, even a second look, devoid of any hook. You're one step closer to it, a hidden clue you spy, riddles to be untied, the dude you must abide. You're one step closer to it, so take a single toke, decode the swirling smoke. What does your mind evoke? You're one step closer to it. You're one step closer to it. To crack the secret code. Overthinking will corrode the clues you've yet to see. And then the moment you're set free, confront your deepest fears, push through the hidden tears, the music of the spheres. You're one step closer to it, around the bend you seek a blanket of relief, a vision so oblique. You're one step closer to it, and on a final note, you'll reap just what you sow. Into this world you grow. You're one step closer to it. You're one step closer to it. To crack the secret code. Overthinking will corrode the clues you've yet to see. And then the moment you're set free.
One Step Closer by Joe Adler. Joe, thanks so much for coming here this
Hey,
evening and
absolute
playing for
pleasure.
us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
This has been Rocket Shop on 105.9 FM. Next week we have Scuzz. Don't miss out. This has been Rocket Shop. Thank you and good night. Yay!
Thank you.